Satnam. My name is Tara, and I wanted to share. I was just doing my Kundalini yoga practice, and I just felt a very deep call in me to speak to my story with Kundalini yoga and lifestyle. And it's a very long story in my mind, but I think I could speak to it in a way that would be really clear and important if it's ever crossed your path, or if you're curious about it. I just think it would be good. So here we go. The first time I did Kundalini yoga was with my father, and I think I was about 17, 18, maybe a little bit older, but I would go visit him every summer. And one summer he was having a class in his house, and he had done not a training, but he'd lived in an ashram for some time, and he learned one kriya, and he kept that kriya in his mind to this day. He still teaches it, practices it, and shares it with people. And so he shared it with me, and there was other people in the class. I think there was like 5 of us, and it was very new to me. I'd never done yoga. I was immediately hit and struck by the feeling that I had in my body. I had tingling sensation in my nose, and it was just so powerful. My whole body felt like it was breathing for the first time, like air and oxygen was coming into my body in a way it had never come in my body before. So that was pretty intense, and at the same time I loved it. I was just like, this is amazing. I felt high, basically, because it was like life force. It was so much life force. So I asked my dad immediately after class, kind of, I think that day, like, can you tell me everything you know? I want to write this all down, and I want to share this with people. And so I think it was first I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to keep doing it myself. So I wrote down the little exercises and did visual diagrams and drew it, and I took it home, and I ended up sharing it with 2 of my friends in my living room. And that was like the beginning. So from the get-go, I wanted to teach it. I wanted to share it. I wanted to do it. I was like totally in love with it. So as my life continued, I went to college in Arizona, and I remember getting to a point where I was just kind of like, I need to find that. I need to find more of it. I need to get some more of that. So I looked some guy up, and this is the Yellow Pages back in the day, and I started to, I called him and I said, I'd like to practice with you. I'd like to come to a class. He said, sure, come to my home. So I knocked on the door. I opened the door, and this huge man with a beard and a turban, and he welcomed me into his home, and we sat down, and there was a sheepskin, and he tuned in, and all of these things my dad didn't do, right? So I was a little bit like, what is this? Why? And it was just me and him. So it was very intimate, very intense, and I just felt, I just remember feeling like I will never do this again. And so this is in like the 2000s, early 2000s. So my path continues. I did a hatha yoga class in college. I was curious, but I didn't feel the same. It wasn't the same experience. I wasn't as like invigorated by it. It was just like, oh, this is nice. So then I went to Vancouver. I ended up in Vancouver after my degree, after I went to college, and I was student teaching at an alternative school in Vancouver. I was going through a really challenging time. I had gotten walking pneumonia. I had pneumonia, and I couldn't get rid of it. And I was starting to take like antibiotics, which I didn't normally do. I was just like, I'll try anything to get rid of this. And one day I walked into the yoga studio. So I had also taken a couple classes from a friend of mine who was teaching at the university, and she taught Kundalini. So I was like, again, like starting to feel it in my life. It started to come in my life again. And one day I walked into the Kundalini yoga studio in Vancouver, And I was just so distraught that I started crying immediately when I started talking to this woman who was there. And it turns out it was Bachin, Bachin Kaur, who was, she's a musical artist, and she turned out to be a good friend and very influential person in my journey along the way. But I told her my whole life story and everything that was going on, and I started crying. And the first thing she said to me is, "It sounds like you could really use sadhana." And I'm like, "What is sadhana?" She's like, "Well, it starts 4 a.m. tomorrow, and you can come join us, and it's free." And I just said, okay. I like heard free, heard that it was not at a time that I had nothing else going on, and I didn't care. I was just willing to change my life because I was struggling so much. It was really grief I was going through. My dad had left Vancouver, and I just had this like deep-seated grief that I was feeling abandoned and all these other issues coming up. And I was teaching for the first time, and I was very confronted with that, and there was just a lot coming up. So I would have done anything at that moment to just shift the energy. And so sure enough, I started going to sadhana at 4 in the morning, and I did it every day. I did it every day. I did it every day. And all of a sudden I healed my lungs, and I was in love. I felt like this was the most amazing thing I'd ever experienced. I'd felt, again, that feeling of like, I'm so alive for the first time in my life. Like, this feels like aliveness. And so I think pretty much at the end of a certain period of time, I signed up for teacher training, and that was the beginning of the end. And I would say there's, now I did that teacher training in 2005, 2006. And since that time, I have used Kundalini Yoga, not every day, but I've definitely had it in my life experience. And the practice has grown with me and changed my life on many levels. And it's a lifestyle. It's not just one thing, right? There are so many aspects of it that has changed my life. And the way I explain it a lot to people is, before finding Kundalini Yoga, I felt like in life I would go like this, like, my path was very long and windy. And then finding Kundalini Yoga, it feels like the technology and using it in my life daily, it straightens the line from point A to point B. So instead of going like this, I'm now starting to go like this, and I don't get so off track. And there's a feeling of the flow coming more into my life, and I can keep up with that flow, and I can bring in the things that I want to call in and keep out the things I want to keep out. And it's so much more now that in the past 2 years, I would say that this practice, it is for warriors. The experience of it is very much connected to a warrior path. You have to be kind of at a place that you need something to really do the hard work that it contains. Waking up at 4 a.m., not everybody does that, but even doing a practice every day, it is a lot of work, and it's not something everybody wants to do, it's just not. So when you find people who do connect to this practice, and it is something that calls them, and they start to integrate it into their life, there's a real aspect of warrior energy that for me was very helpful. And even a lot of what we do, we hold our arms up in 6 minutes in the air, and in 11 minutes it's very challenging. And so for me, that brought in this level of discipline and connection to discipline, which I don't think my family, as growing up, I ever got the benefits and the support discipline can bring into your life. And that's what this practice has given me now, is the awareness of that discipline and how it actually creates magic in my life. And so and there's so many aspects also to what this has given me with my children, the birth of my children. I think if you are curious about Kundalini Yoga, or you're in these transitional stages and you need something, it is a lifestyle that hits every chapter of life, which is also a really beautiful, it's a lineage. It's connected to ancient technology and ancient teachings, and especially at this time as we're going through this transition to the Aquarian age, it is made to help support what we're going through with our nervous system and our change of sensory system. We are coming into a much more sensitive space, and Kundalini is meant and created and supported that. It helps us with this transition. So I could go on and on. I am grateful to all my teachers, and I'm grateful to all the people who keep up and keep the community connected, and I'm grateful to myself for finding this path and following it and continuing to commit to it every day. And I pray for you, if you're watching this and it resonates, that you find the gold at the end of the rainbow with this practice and this path. Thanks for watching. Satnam.